you can hear me okay. Kids, if you're still with us, I've got a little bit of fun for you, so do stay on board for the next few minutes at least. Okay, so I want to tell you a story about a guy called Jimmy. Let me just see if I can spin my camera out. Right. So I'm going to do a little demonstration with some Duplo. So can you see this little chap here?
Yeah, we can see him, Pat.
You can see him fine. Well, this is Jimmy. And Jimmy, well, he's been, unfortunately, he's been doing some sinning. He's been doing some pretty naughty things. Not too naughty, but pretty naughty. And these sins are being added to his account, just like these Lego bricks being put on top of his head there. I hope you can see that. Those sins are mounting up on Jimmy's account. He's got a few there, but not too many. And I'm just going to introduce you to somebody else. This other guy, you can see him. His name is Fireman Sam. Now, Fireman Sam has been, he's been around a lot longer and he's accumulated a lot more sins. He's done a lot of bad things. He's lied, he's cheated, he's taken some other people's stuff. And that is mounted up, and many, many things have been added to his account, as you can see. All these sins here represented by the bricks. And guess what? All these things are on his account can't be cleared. All these sins. He's tried lots of different things, Fireman Sam, and the more things he tries, the more he finds that more sins add up, and he can't shift them on his own. And little Jimmy, he's sort of getting the same sort of experience, really. He's tried to be good, but all the goodness he's doing doesn't seem to account for the bad things that he's done. But now, let's have a look at this. We've got Fireman Sam here with that big stack, and we've got little Jimmy with this little stack of sins. And you know what Jimmy was thinking to himself? He was thinking, do you know what? I'm bad, but I'm not as bad as him. Maybe I'll be all right. Because there's a lot far worse people out there than me. You know, I haven't actually done that much wrong. And that's the way that he's looking at the sin. And also, Fireman Sam, in the same way, has been saying to himself, there's no way that I can ever shift any of this. It's too much. I've done too much. But look at Jimmy. He's hardly done anything wrong. I've done everything wrong. I don't deserve, you know, there's no way that anything's ever going to change for me. This weight on my shoulders is way too big. And I just want to, the thing that I want to share with you today is that we very much look at sin and we measure sin in this way. And this is a human way of measuring. We say this one is better than this one. But I want to show you that God views sin in a very, very different way. Okay? He's not looking at the quantity of sin. He's looking at the fact that sin becomes a barrier between him and us. Okay, so if we just move now, and I hope you can see this well on the video, you can see on the right hand side there we've got Fireman Sam, and you can see that green barrier, those bricks, but you can only see one big brick on top. You can see one barrier, and it's a barrier between God and Fireman Sam. And you see on the left here, you can see one brick, and it covers little Jimmy. And guess what? It's a barrier between him and God. It's the same barrier, and God sees it in this way. He doesn't see quantity. He sees something stopping him having a relationship with us. And I suppose I want to encourage you, if you're in a position where you're saying to yourself, my sins are too big, they're too bad, and these barriers in my life cannot be moved, I want to encourage you that God is much bigger than all of this. He has the victory over sin, and he is able to take it away, just like that. And I want to encourage you, the bigger stack was no more difficult for someone of my size to take away. And God is the biggest. And he is able to deal with any quantity of sin. And I suppose today's message is going to be just this. Are we listening to the lie that says that our sin cannot be dealt with, and we are going to be stuck like this forever? Or are we like Jimmy, listening to the lie that says, I'm all right, I don't need to deal with this sin, I'm better than the next guy, I'm not that bad? And so that concludes my little Lego demonstration this morning. I'm just going to spin my camera background and then we'll get into my sermon. So I'm just going to share my screen. I'm hoping that you can see it okay. Mark, you just let me know if you can't. Okay? Can you see that okay?
Perfect, Pat.
Okay, super. Right, okay, so today's sermon, I really wanted to preach a very Easter Sunday type message where I talked about the resurrection, and I walked through the steps, and I considered it for a while, and God just wasn't speaking that to me, and this one story just kept coming back to me. So as we get into it, I'm sorry if you're expecting a slightly more Easter orientated story, but this is the same gospel and it's the same Jesus, and I want to encourage you that wherever he is, he's dealing with sin, and wherever he is, he's bringing victory, and he's moving people forward into what he has for them. And he was doing that back then, and he's doing it today, and he's available to do it in our lives this morning if we let him. I had a picture. Can you see that? Can you see that bow and arrow there? Now, this is a little word that I feel God is saying. We are like the arrow sometimes, and Jesus is like the bow. Okay, and in our lives, sometimes it can feel like we are moving backwards. We are being pulled back, just like this arrow is being pulled back. It's being pulled away from where it wants to go. And we can feel like that in our lives, like nothing is going right. I'm being moved away from where I think I should be. And I want to encourage you this morning that the Lord is saying, I am the bow. I will propel you forward. You are being pulled back for a purpose, and I am the one who is going to propel you forward. You must hold on to me. Don't fall off the bow. If that arrow falls off the bow, it falls on the floor. I want to encourage you this morning that Jesus is the bow, and you need to cling on to him. And if you do, he will propel you forward into what he has for you. Your job is to stay on the bow. So I don't know where that came from, but that's part of what I want to speak about this morning. God has got a future for you to go forward. All we have to focus on is him. All we have to focus on is Jesus. And if we do that, we will move forward. Okay. Now, some of you may know this guy on the left there with me. That's Simon Tucker. I text this picture to Simon this morning, and he said, "Oh, Pat, love the bromance." So just a picture there of me and Simon. I just want to tell you a little story. We went to India, Simon and myself, 2017, and it might have even been 2018, but I think it was 2000. But anyway, we were in India, and they said, we're going to take you to this island that's full of Bengal tigers, and we're going to show you the tigers. And of course, we were completely unsure, was we be caged off? Are we actually going to see one? Are they going to jump out on us? And we were sort of a little nervous, so we thought we would wind Simon up. So we were saying to Simon, well, Simon, you don't have to be faster than the tiger. You just got to be all we've got to do, Simon, is be faster than you. And so we were telling Simon, as long as we could get away from the tiger quicker than he could, we'd be all right, because he'd get eaten. In which case he got very, very nervous for a long period of time. We kept winding him up. It was rather entertaining. But I suppose when we're talking about sin, I'm going back to this subject of sin. When we're talking about sin, being better than the next guy isn't going to deal with your sin. It's not going to get you to heaven. being slightly better than somebody else won't do. And we're going to find that out in today's story. So let's keep moving. I suppose all of us must come to this point with sin where we say, look, Lord, I just can't do it. I cannot deal with it. And it's a place that brings us to our knees. And I know that many of you will have experienced this at some point in your life. And thank Jesus he doesn't leave us in that place, because it is not a great place to be in. Thank Jesus that he moves us on into what he has for us, and he gives us a future, and he gives us a way to move forward. He gives us salvation. But I just encourage you that if you want to come into the things of God, if you want to know Jesus as your personal saviour and live in the power that he offers, you're going to have to come to a point where you say, I cannot move forward in my own strength anymore. And I just want to talk very briefly from Mark 14. It's when Jesus was on trial for things that he'd not done, and Peter had said, I will follow you all the way. I'll go all the way with you, Jesus. I won't let you down. And he was talking very much because he loved Jesus so much, but he was also saying, in my own strength, I can keep going. That's what he was saying. I can be the man that you want me to be, and I can be the man that I want to be on my own. And Jesus, I just want to pick this up. Verse 71 of Mark 14. Peter swore, a curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know this man you're talking about. And immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Suddenly Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. And this is the part. It says, and he broke down and he wept. And I just want to show you a little picture there of Peter. He broke down and he wept. And he broke down and he wept because he knew he wasn't good enough. He tried his absolute hardest to live the right life. He tried his absolute best by his force of his own will to live up to the expectations that he'd set himself, and he fell short. He fell absolutely short, and he was shattered. He knew that he wasn't good enough. He knew that he'd let down the only person who'd never let him down. And there was nothing he could do about it. He was absolutely broken. And he was in this place of knowing that he wasn't enough. And I just want to encourage you that you need to come to that place before you can move forward with God. And I hope you've already come via the cross, but that is the place that you must come by to know him and to operate in his power. And he will pick you up, and you will move forward in his strength. And I encourage you, let's look at all the other men and women of God who have a real revelation. Let's look at, I don't know, Paul. Paul was doing everything in his own strength. He was doing it all. He was saving the world one Christian at a time by locking them up. And yet God brought him to a place where he couldn't even see. And he had to rely on other people. And he was totally aware of his own failing. And he sat there, and he had to sit there for a few days and just soak it up and realize that he couldn't do it his own way, in his own strength, in his own righteousness. And then God came and brought someone to him who set him free. And he knew he was free, not by his own power, but because God had allowed him to be free. And isn't that the story of each one of us? If you haven't experienced that yet, I want to encourage you, you can receive Jesus Christ fully this morning. Amen. And if you have received him and you just need reminding that he's there and he's in charge, well then great. Let's get focused back on him this morning. This morning's scripture is Luke 7, if you want to turn to it. Luke 7:36 is where we're starting. And this is a story that the Lord's given me this morning. It's the story of Jesus visiting one of the Pharisees called Simon. He went to his house to essentially just chat about God and just big chat really. He was just there to talk. And let's find out what happens in this story. One of the Pharisees, so I'm reading from Luke 7:36. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from that city heard he was eating there, she bought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. I just want to encourage you. This is a crazy story. How did she even get in? And if we look, I'm just going to go back a couple of slides. Simon was a Pharisee. He would have had a decent sized house, most likely with a courtyard. It would have been slightly open and people would have been able to slip in. And when she heard where Jesus was, she just went running to him. And I want to encourage you this morning that Jesus, you know where he is. You know where he is. He's available to you and he's in your heart. And you can go running to him this morning. Don't let all of the other external things and voices stop you from getting to Jesus. She didn't. And she wasn't the greatest person in the world. In fact, she was totally opposite. She was one of the worst. But she didn't let anything stop her. She didn't let the fact that it wasn't her house, it wasn't her people, she wasn't invited. None of those things stopped her from coming to Jesus. She wasn't focused on anybody else in the room, just him. And later on, we're going to see how she receives everything, even though she's a failure. Isn't that a wonderful story? That can be our story, and it should be our story, that we've received everything from Jesus, despite all our failings, despite our sin. He's clothed us in righteousness. He's given us salvation. He's given us a way forward. There's a beautiful song. It says, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. And I'm encouraged by that. There's a future for you. Tomorrow looks bright. You might be going through hard things, but God has got a way forward and you can walk in it. Let's continue with the story. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of a woman is touching him. She's a sinner. And then Jesus answered his thoughts. He said, Simon, he said to the Pharisee, I have something to say to you. And Simon said, go ahead, teacher. Simon replied. Then Jesus told this story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other, but neither of them could repay him. So he kindly forgave them both, cancelling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Jesus said. And I just want to maybe try to interlace my little story from earlier. This is like Jimmy and Fireman Sam. One owe 50 and one owe 500, but neither can pay it. And we can say this is like, Pat and Tim and everybody else and Mark and Gemma and everybody. None can repay. But Jesus comes and he forgave and he cancelled the debt. And isn't this a wonderful story? And and this is the question that Jesus has afterwards. Simon, who do you think will love me more afterwards? The one who was let off 50 or the one who was let off 500? And Simon answered, I suppose the one for whom he cancelled the larger debt. That's right, Jesus said. Maybe Simon thought to himself, yeah, well, I do know the scriptures quite well because I'm a Pharisee, see, and I've been training all my life and I'm very religious. So of course I know the right answer to these questions. And that's maybe where he felt. And I'm not as bad as she is. I've got a right to stand on my own 2 feet in the presence of Jesus. And that may be where he was up to. Let's see what Jesus has got to say to that. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the first time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. And do you know what? I love this so much. And one of the reasons I love it so much is because Jesus, he doesn't focus on yesterday. He doesn't focus on the failings of the past. He doesn't focus on what this woman was. He doesn't focus on the fact that everybody else thinks less of her. He focuses on today. And you know what? We can come to Jesus today and it doesn't matter about yesterday. Isn't that the power of the cross? Isn't that the power of being free from sin? And Jesus, I love it when Jesus talks like this, you know, and those who are looking to hold her down, those who are looking to say she's not good enough, Jesus stands up for her, and he'll stand up for you, and he'll stand up for you on that final day if you are willing to come to him and allow him to work in your life. Isn't that wonderful?
Amen.
And so let's continue. Jesus says this, I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven. So she has shown me much love. But a person who is forgiven little shows little love. And he said to this woman, your sins are forgiven. Jesus has the power to forgive sins. And this is pre-cross. Jesus has the power. And I do you know what? This excites me so much. This is wonderful news. This is the good news. You can be free of all your guilt. Doesn't matter what the past is, doesn't matter where you've come from, you can be free. And you can walk with your head held high, knowing that you are a son and daughter of the Most High God. Isn't that wonderful? I want to encourage you in this last line here, verse 50. And Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Isn't that wonderful? Go in peace. But what about all my failings? Go in peace. What about all the guilt that I'm holding on to? Go in peace. He's saying, move forward. From this moment, what I've done today, I've set you free. Now you move forward. Isn't that exciting? We don't have to stay stuck in that prison. You know, sin is like a prison that holds us down. It's like chains that hold us down. And Jesus has come and he's broken those chains. But he is speaking to us and he is saying, go in peace. As he sets us free, he gives us a peace and we can walk in that. Now, if you stay sitting in that prison, I'll tell you what, eventually that door might lock back up on you again. You've got to get out and you've got to move forward into Christ. Isn't that exciting? That God doesn't want you to just sit and wallow and pay penance for yesterday. He wants you to move forward into today and into tomorrow for the good things that he has for you. So I just want to encourage you, go forward. Now, there was another man in this story, it was Simon. Now, one of Simon's big problems was he was someone who compared. You know, he was justifying himself by saying, I'm better than her. And Jesus is saying to him, you've got your eyes fixed on the wrong thing. Look, she's come into this place and she hasn't taken her gaze off of me. She has not stopped doing things for me. And what have you done? You just sat there looking around, trying to be the big man. Comparing yourself to others, making yourself feel good because you're better than somebody else. And Jesus is saying, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in today. What are you doing today? And so sometimes I think as Christians we can fall back into old ways. We can fall back into old patterns of thinking, which cause us to start trying to justify ourselves again. And you know what? When you realise you can't justify yourself, what you do is you end up pushing others down to justify yourself. Well, I can justify myself because I'm better than somebody else. You know, it's easy to do. And as Christians, we can do it. We can look around at other people and start pointing the finger. And so, and God is saying, look, I want you to forget about that. I want you to forget about what other people have done wrong. And I want you to fix your eyes on me. I am the bow. You're an arrow. Do not fall off the bow this morning. Fix your eyes on me and everything else will come. But while you're looking left and while you're looking right and while you're trying to do something, you're never gonna be able to move forward with me. You need to just put everything else aside and you need to come to me and let me deal with it all. And I want to encourage you this morning. That's what Jesus is saying. He's ready to break those chains. He's ready to set you free. He's ready to do what he does. He does it day in, day out. And he has that power, but we have to come to him. And we have to allow him to do it. And we have to put everything else aside, just like the woman did. She put her old sin aside. She put what everybody else thought aside. But Simon, he was struggling to do it. He needed Jesus to let him know afresh. It's time to refocus. It's time to come to Jesus afresh. Well, amen. I'm going to finish there. But as we take communion, I just want us to think about what's Jesus done for me. You know, he can wipe that slate clean again and again. But I'll say, don't stay sitting where you're sitting. Move forward into what he has for you. Fix your eyes on him. You know, when you're riding a bike, I say to my boys, look forward. You'll go where your eyes go. And if you look at the floor, you'll end up on the floor. And if you look forward, you'll go for it. And so I want to encourage you, look at Jesus and go for him. Amen. I'm going to pass back to Mark now.